9 a.m. to noon. Taking your calls on 0861 987 000.
People of power, it is a very good morning to you. 9 minutes past 10, the second hour of Power Talk. That sound in your ears, Power 98.7, and the voice is myself, Lukona Lupawa Mnguni. Rolling with you until 12 p.m. when we bring you to a close this morning. Now let's turn again. It's the last panel discussion we are doing with the chairpersons of portfolio committees in the Gauteng Provincial Legislature. This morning, I'm joined by Mpapa Kanyane, who is chairperson for the Portfolio Committee on Economic Development, Agriculture, Environment, and Rural Development. They are dealing with a lot of issues there. Of course, you'll know that they have the Township Economic Bill as well that is out, which we were telling you about, the meeting that they had at City Hall last week or the other week, if I'm not mistaken. But gosh, we've got a lot to tackle. Modise, also chairperson, Infrastructure Development and Property Management. Gentlemen, a very good morning, Tade Kanyane.
Good morning, and then also the listeners.
Thank you so much. Right, Modise? Good morning. Are you well?
All in order.
Now I can see you are strong. You are even in camouflage. You are celebrating the 60th anniversary of Mkhonto Wesizwe as well.
In advance. Yeah.
Well, it's been an interesting conversation as we talk to various committee chairpersons about the annual performance report of the 2020-2021 financial year. Of course, this looks both at the financial health of the departments that you have oversight over, but also we talk also about the substantive matters, given that as members of the legislature you are able to go on site visits, summon various people and so on to make sure that the work is done. Tade Kanyane, let me talk with you first. I mean, like I said, so many things you're dealing with in that portfolio committee. I mean, I can't even know where to start, but just give me a sense. How is the health status of the department that you have oversight over?
No, thank you very much. I must say it can be 50-50.
Yeah.
Because as the portfolio committee, our role is to exercise oversight. So it's not really a very friendly relationship, because you have to be very robust in terms of their outputs. So as the committee, we also scrutinize their APPs, that's their annual performance plans, and then that we always evaluate periodically. That is quarterly.
Yeah.
But I must say, in terms of the annual report, the department has performed fairly well. If you really look at it in terms of the audit opinion of the Auditor General, I recall that for this financial year, they were really appropriated to the tune of 1.9 billion, but they were able to underspend by 1.8 billion. So
wait.
Yes,
they were appropriated
1.9 billion. And now, in terms of
that money, they spend 1.8.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
So you could see that it's fairly, it's something that though as a committee, we'll have really to be very robust. We want them not to underspend, because for us, if you underspend, obviously you are disadvantaging some, and especially you also compromise service delivery. So we looked at it, but it is within the threshold of the PFMA, where they say if you spend less than 5%, so we can really understand it. So that is in terms of the expenditure. But I must say, even if they really spend in that particular fashion, there are issues that we've really picked up, and then we hope that the department will really take that and make sure that they perform accordingly in terms of the plans. I'll give you, there are a number of entities in this department. And the one that you are worried about, it is the Gauteng enterprise propeller.
Yeah.
And then we're working closely with the department that let's make sure that we really lift the bar, especially coming to that area. We picked up some 2-3 things where there is a 250 million. That was the COVID-19 relief fund, which was not really spent. And we are really worried about it as a portfolio committee to say the money should have really assisted during this period of COVID.
But on that point, sorry to break your train of thought, Kanyane, because I've spoken to the Gauteng Enterprise Propeller on this show previously, and the listeners who called in, who have applied in some instances, they just talk about how cumbersome it is to get funding because of the admin process that is there, because of the red tape. And I mean, you would think that emergency funds intended to alleviate something, we're talking about making sure that they are as readily available as possible and you cut the red tape to access them as much as possible. As the portfolio committee, when you scrutinize the propeller and some of its limitations, have you picked up something in terms of turnaround time to respond to applicants?
Precisely, those are some of the recommendations that we have really put to the department, because one, they were really putting the matter to the CEO. They didn't have the CEO for quite some time. But now they've appointed the CEO, and then we also had a meeting face-to-face with the CEO to say, now that you are appointed, make sure that we deal with these issues that are there. Whatever bottlenecks that is there, make sure that we strengthen that. And then the other part that they raised as the department, as the entity, they talked about service providers who do not really meet those required standards. But we said, let them also empower, because they're talking about SMMEs from the township. They need also education so that they are able. Our measure should not be of exclusion. We have really to include them by empowering them. So those are some of the issues that they've really raised.
Yeah.
But I told you that we picked up all these things, like the amount that I've just raised in terms of the COVID-19 relief fund. And then again, there is also 100 million. That was not spent. It was the rebuild fund. You remember we had this unrest in July.
Yeah.
So they were supposed to intervene and come up and boost these SMMEs to make sure that they're also in par and they're able really to operate. So we also looked at that very seriously to say the need really to make sure that the money is spent accordingly.
Modise, let me bring you into this conversation. Your department carries a very complex task, at least not your department, the department you have oversight of. Now you are going to think I'm appointing you MEC and I might be taking Premier Makura's powers. But the department you have oversight over has a very complex task, and your colleagues that I've spoken to, who I've spoken to on this show, have complained about the delivery of infrastructure and not being happy. They're not opening enough schools. The combi courts are not arriving. The hospitals or the health sector, there are certain things that are missing there. What do you think is at the heart of operation for the department that you have oversight over, and are you satisfied with its ability to deliver to its clients who are other government departments in the province of Gauteng?
Wow, what a question. And I suppose I was listening to all the interviews that we had with the different chairpersons, because I knew that the Department of Infrastructure Development and Property Management will take a center role in whatever it is that they want to talk about, especially those who outline departments to the department. And the unfortunate part is that you already summarized it for me when you said there seemed to be a cumbersome type of an arrangement and a number of red tapes and unnecessary administration within government in order to get things going. And I'm saying this because if you look into the capital projects that government ought to take, Department of Infrastructure Development and Property Management supposed to build schools for education, combi courts, if you may, for Department of SREC, and a number of other departments. And most of these projects don't get to be finished, they get to be abandoned, and so on and so forth. Primarily because infrastructure has to appoint, build. Instead of paying a contractor, they must wait for the department to pay the money into the account of infrastructure so that it's able to pay the client. So the process in between becomes that cumbersome type of a process. If it was to be possible that the money from each department gets to be given to infrastructure, and the department goes and says, this is what we want to do, and these are the reasons why. Once a decision has been arrived at, infrastructure becomes the responsible department to do that. Then we would say the performance of infrastructure, they are unable to do these things and so on and so forth. But primarily is the issue of payment.
Yeah.
Most of contractors, if you were to talk to them, they will tell you infrastructure is not paying.
Yeah.
You go to infrastructure and we are waiting for the money from the health
No,
department.
in fact, it is the department that is flagged to account for the vast majority of the outstanding over 1 billion to service providers in the province. Are you then suggesting that perhaps the province needs to reimagine how it does, even if it does its division of revenue? So if a department has an infrastructure program that it must pay for, maybe that money must be ring-fenced at Treasury for ease of transfer when that project is completed, or instead of this virement, you seem to be suggesting it to go for Treasury to education, from education to infrastructure, from infrastructure to service provider. That sounds like a lot of
For me,
work.
it will work better if the division was to come in and Treasury says for this department this is how much we're giving and then all the MECs, including the Premier, they sit down and say, what is it that we need to do? These are the programs that we want to do. This is how much they're going to cost. All that money gets to be given to the MEC Motara's department. And she becomes politically responsible to ensure that all these programs that different departments wants to do are achievable. Because that will then say, if contractor is not paid, MEC Motara must account. But currently, MEC Motara will say, no, I'm still waiting for MEC Mokgeti's department. MEC Mokgeti is still waiting for the HOD. The HOD is waiting for the CFO. And it's a problem that is so unnecessary for my liking. So if it was possible, we will say, for us to be able to judge the Department of Infrastructure, Development and Property Management, let it be that they get to be given the entire budget of all their clients' department. MEC Lisufi goes to MEC Motara and say, where's my smart school?
Yeah.
You said in the next 24 months we'll have delivered my smart school. Therefore, we are able to say, but MEC, you and your department are not performing. But currently, MEC can say, no, you can complain all you want. But your department are also a problem in their own.
And then it triggers, of course, a performance review problem for the rest of the departments. Let me take a short ad break. People of Power, I'm in conversation with Mpapa, Kanyane, Economic Development, Agriculture, Environment and Rural Development Portfolio Committee Chairperson, Mpho Modise, Infrastructure Development and Property Management Portfolio Committee Chairperson here in the Provincial Legislature in Gauteng. 0861-987-000 is the dial that's open to you to put some questions to them about the performance of various aspects of their departments. Really tasked and charged with a lot of tasks to deliver on. It is 21 minutes past 10.
Advance your life with African Bank's best investment rate of 11%. You can open a 60-month fixed deposit account in 3 minutes. Big dreams don't need big start. Earn SA's best investment rate from 500 Rand. Getting great returns could get you closer to your goals. Go to africanbank.co.za to invest today. African Bank is an authorized FSP and registered credit provider. T's and C's apply. African Bank, we are you.
Power Talk with Mpho Namguji, weekdays 9 a.m. to noon on Power 98.7.
Indeed, it is. Perhaps, Mr. Kanyane, let's come back now to some of the more substantial issues. I see you deal with rural development. There, of course, people will think that Gauteng is an extremely urbanized province, but there are rural communities in Gauteng. I am always fascinated. What do we mean when we talk about rural development?
No, thank you very much. You'll also recall, based on the past, that we need really to empower, especially our communities that were really disadvantaged then, to make sure that they are also access the markets, especially in the area of agriculture. And then we are saying, based on that, let there be some programs that will really empower our communities and make sure that they also trade in that particular area. And then in this case, we are also overseeing the agricultural and rural development. And I must say that section, they also performed fairly well, because if you look at their budget, they were able to spend 97%, and which is closer to 100%. And but you really, I should also give you the picture, because they were budgeted for about 1 billion.
Yeah.
But now there was a rearrangement where they had to readjust and take some of the money And that was a call from the president that it must go to other units that will assist during the COVID-19, during the time of the COVID-19 when it started. So that budget was put down to 998 million. So you could see how it was really cut. So they had a very little budget that they had to spend, and that's why we talk about 97% that they've already spent. But I must say there are some issues that we have really picked up also in this area, because we are saying these emerging farmers, there is a problem in accessing these markets, and they need really to be empowered. And then we're saying the issue of mentoring, they must really focus on it as the department. And then also the access to the tools, the tractors, the whatever. So we raise those issues. But in terms of expenditure with the AG, they got unqualified audit with no findings. So they performed fairly well.
No, absolutely. I mean, even the propeller you spoke about, the AG's report does, say their audit outcomes have improved compared to the previous year.
Yes.
So there is movement happening there, but people, of course, often call in and say we don't eat clean audits, we eat the delivery. Do you think there is enough budget for the department? Because when you look at agriculture, even at a national government level, agriculture, rural development, you find that it gets probably the tiniest parts of the budget that are available. Do you think there is enough budget to fulfill the scale of demands that are on the ground, which I'm sure you see when you visit communities and, of course, different players in the space of rural economies?
Yeah, relatively, there won't be enough. I mean, that is subjective. It can really be argued. There's no way you can reach a point that it is enough, because the demands are huge. And I wouldn't really say it's enough. But what we are concerned with as the committee, we are saying what you have, spend it. It can't be that the money should go back to Treasury. I think that's mainly our concern, that we want to see you spending this money accordingly. And I think that's the issue. And then I've pointed, some of the issues that we have to deal with.
Yeah.
I mean, you go to you are routing the GGDA. Now, there it's about the innovation hubs. And then you want those innovation hubs to be very functional. You go to the Chamdo hub, because the main aim there is for rehabilitation. Let's rehabilitate those industries and then make sure that they are functional. And why we put the Chamdo as a committee, and we said it openly to the department that they must really look at it, because it was supposed to be completed the past 2 financial year. Now it's not yet completed, but they had about 8 service providers that were appointed. So for us, we look at it as something that really they have to pay attention to.
Yeah.
And we told them, we gave them also the demand that we want to see this beyond the fourth quarter.
Mpho, let me come back to you. I mean, let's talk about the makeup of the department. We've spoken about the bureaucracy, its some nature and so on. But let's talk about the Department of Infrastructure and Property, Infrastructure Development and Property Management. Does it have enough expertise within the department to deliver? And I'll go back to a point I made yesterday to one of your colleagues to say I've had anecdotal evidence from project managers in that department who complain about the appointment of project managers who are not well equipped to execute their tasks. And then the burden falls a lot on some of the qualified project managers to carry even those colleagues who are, in the department but are unable to fulfill their duties. What's your sense of the expertise in-house that are available to the department?
Well, for me, it will be very much unfortunate if there's such information coming from the department or colleagues in government, because ever since I came into the department in 2019, I've never came across such information, either raised by the MEC, HOD, or any other senior manager within the department. What has always been clear, and I'm saying this thing, and I hope I don't get to be sued, because I've got a lawsuit as I speak now for doing an oversight work.
Yeah.
What I've picked up ever since I came in is that we've got contractors who gets to be given project, yet they don't know what they're doing.
Yeah.
Either they in terms of their submission of tender documents, it's bidding. They don't code adequately. They undercoat, and when they get on side, they realize, there's no way I'm going to drive that Range Rover if I were to do this project, the manner in which it's supposed to be done. And then they do shortcuts, short circuit here and there, such that they are able to drive these Range Rovers, they're able to go to this fancy place and be seen to have arrived. And that's what we have experiencing. We've got contractors that are unable to finish projects, but they continue getting projects. And these are the issues that, as a committee, for over time, we felt this is wrong. And I'm happy that as I'm sitting here now, I can be sued. It's okay. At least the House has adopted.
And what
the
about
report.
the business chambers that keep mushrooming as well, that hold some competent contractors in ransom? For example, I know from KZN, we had the problem of Amadelang Ogbona. They would come and demand a 30%. And we started hearing some of these things in some projects in Pretoria, where people would come and say, no, we want a stake here. But they, as you're saying, some of them can't even deliver. They don't even want to do the work, but they want to benefit from the projects. Have you encountered, as the portfolio committee, those instances?
That's the biggest problem that we're sitting with currently across the province. And what we have done in one of the projects to deal with the so-called 30% business forums and so on, there's a project in Midval, Bantu Bonke community. It's an early childhood development center, which was supposed to have started, I think, as far back as 2017. And when we came in, there was nothing, but there was money spent on professional services and so on and so forth. As a portfolio committee, we went to the community. We held a community meeting, and we said, this is what is expected to be done here in your community. This is what is needed from you as a community members. I'm speaking to you now. Well, the project is not complete, but there has been a serious movement. If we could go there now and show you what it was before we came in and what is there now in dealing with this local, so-called business forum, because indeed, majority of them just want money. They don't want to do work. They don't want to understand that for them to get that money, they got to be paid, or they got to do certain work for them to be paid. I think on yesterday morning, if not Monday, we received a presentation. Myself as the chair of the
let's
committee.
hold that thought. I'll allow you to share that story, the presentation that you received. I want to go to Katlego Lekhodi to give us the latest Power News headlines. And Katlego, I wonder if on your desk it has landed. Seems as if news just in. The court says the former president must go back to prison.
Thanks, Bikona. Good morning. Most definitely, we start with breaking news at this moment. The High Court in Pretoria has ordered that former President Jacob Zuma return to prison and serve the remainder of his sentence. The court ruled this morning that the decision taken by the former Correctional Services Commissioner Arthur Fraser to release Zuma on parole was unlawful. The application to have the decision declared unlawful was brought by the Democratic Alliance and the Helen Suzman Foundation. The ruling handed down by Judge Elias Matojane states that the Medical Parole Board was the right body to recommend the granting of parole, while Zuma was placed on medical parole after serving only 2 of his 15-month sentence. In other news, the Department of Health says it's disappointed to learn that the transmission efficiency of a double-dose Pfizer vaccine against COVID-19 has fallen to 33%. Discovery Health ran a study from its members' vaccination records, which showed that the Pfizer vaccines were 80% effective against the Delta and Beta variants. However, that's not the case with the Omicron variant. The health insurer's report says that Omicron variant dominates infections and is currently responsible for more than 90% of cases in South Africa. And the Airlines Association of Southern Africa has welcomed the UK's decision to remove African countries from its red list. The association says it is relieved that the UK has come to its senses and relaxed travel restrictions. The UK placed South Africa, Angola, Botswana, Eswatini, Lesotho, Malawi, Nigeria and Zimbabwe amongst others to the list following the discovery of the Omicron variant a few weeks ago. Yesterday, the UK decided to remove these countries from the red list, while CEO of the association, Aaron Munyetsi, says the decision to place these countries on the red list was ineffective.
It was clear from the start that restrictions, the intentions of which are debatable, were counterproductive and ineffective. We trust that policymakers and political leaders will take their lead from science and harmonize adoption of measures for safe air travel that are recommended by the World Health Organization and its United Nations sister body, the International Civil Aviation Organization.
I have more details on these and other stories at the top of the hour.
Traffic. Very good morning to you once again. We start off in Germiston. If you are traveling on the M2 westbound, you can expect heavy congestion as you are getting out of central Germiston from Refinery Road, heading up towards the Geldenhuys interchange. Further down the M2 west as you're headed down towards the Johannesburg central area. Do expect to bump into delays that are just over 15 minutes from Ben Rose, going all the way down towards the Crown interchange. If you are in Crown City and traveling on Main Reef Road eastbound, there's an obstruction that's on the roadway just after the Park Drive intersection, and that's causing a lot of pressure on that route, and delays are just under 20 minutes, and they are coming from Nasrec Road past the Langlaagte License Department, heading all the way down towards the Macro Shopping Center. On the westbound direction, you can also expect to queue for about 15 minutes as you are approaching the Langlaagte License Department. Church Street southbound experiencing a lot of pressure as well. Delays are just under 20 minutes as well between Albertina Sisulu, that's as you are getting out of Fortsburg, heading down towards joining Main Reef Road. If you are traveling on the N1 South in Midrand, there's a collision that's happened just after the New Road exit. Delays start just after Olifantsfontein Road, and they are just over 15 minutes as well. In the city of Tshwane, traffic lights are out at the Mabopane Highway and Eskiam Patlele. Delays can be expected on both sides of Eskiam Patlele. You can also expect queuing traffic as you are traveling on Transorania Road northbound as you are approaching the WF Nkomo Street intersection. And remember, if you come across any further traffic incidents, tweet at Power987 Traffic. For Power Traffic, I'm Lebogang Phukela.
Power Traffic. Power Business
with Kaya Sitole.
Mike Schussler, Chief Economist at economist.co.za.
December is the spending month in South Africa.
Hopefully, we'll still be able to see some spending increasing over the next 17 days as we are off the red list, and maybe some tourists may still creep in. And we're hoping that we don't get taken into hard lockdowns, because I think that would be very, very disastrous for a lot of business.
No, absolutely. This economy lost 2.2 million jobs, Kaya, since the start of the pandemic. We really don't want further lockdown.
Power Business, Monday to Thursday, 6 to 8 p.m. and Fridays, 6 to 7 p.m. on Power 98.7.
Power Business is proudly brought to you by APSA. We do more so you can. That's Africanacity, only on Power 98.7. Now we're talking.
Power 98.7, progressively elevating the conversation. Now we're talking.
Well, indeed we are. It is 24 minutes to the hour 11 o'clock, and I continue here in studio with my guests from the Gauteng Provincial Legislature, Mpapa, Kanyane, there with Economic Development, Agriculture, Environment and Rural Development Portfolio Committee as its chairperson, Mpho Modise chairing the Infrastructure Development and Property Management Committee. Mpho, let me give you a chance to wrap up that anecdote you were giving us in terms of the presentation you received yesterday. Before I go to that line, 0861-987-000, Silent Max, Tlabiro and Mkolisi, I see you already, but I do want you to finish that point you were making.
I was saying in relation to these so-called local business forums that keep on disrupting projects in different communities. On Monday, myself as the chair of the committee, the MEC and the HOD received a presentation from a company called Talon's Empire, led by Peter Sibilwane as the president and Willie Mutei as the CEO, who indicated that they've put together 30 different companies in and around the Val, because there are a number of projects in the Val that are not being completed. I can count probably 8 or 9 that I know from the top of my head. And they are saying, look, we are prepared to work with government, assist government, so that these projects in our area are able to be completed, because they are stopped by the same people who stays in the Val. And tomorrow they complain that the government is not doing anything for the people of the Val. One of the projects that they raised sharply was the Vereeniging taxi rank, which I think has
been going on for some time, isn't it?
Yeah. And then there's a Kopanong hospital where we're supposed to do a COVID hospital. There's a Resteval Primary School. There's a Sebokeng License Department Station. A number of other projects. All put together, they could be in the region of plus or minus 1.5 to 2 billion. So they are saying, as Talons, as an empire of different companies, we have a balance sheet of plus or minus 2 to 3 billion together. So we believe that we have what it takes to be able to assist government in taking this project, and will be able to take care of these local business forums so that the projects are completed. And I'm thinking if we could have that across the province, then we'll be able to deal with this issue of local.
So it seems as if there are people in society coming up with solutions. I'll ask you to take a few notes. I'll take about 2 or 3 calls. Shabira, where's my mouse? There you are. Good morning.
Hey, good morning, Lukona.
Are you well?
How are you?
I'm fantastic. And yourself?
Hey, Mpapa.
Hey.
I'm
listening.
Look, man, I just wanted to, there was a question I think Lukona raised on about the issue of rural in urban areas. I just wanted to understand what areas in these urban areas are classified as rural. I want to understand that. And the second, my other question is that if you're driving from R21 to Pretoria, somewhere alongside in Tembisa, you will see that there is a people who are doing plowing activities along the roads, and they're producing the meals which we're eating on a daily basis. Now, I just wanted to understand from the Mpapa's department what sort of contribution are they doing, or what is it that they're doing to empower those people to make sure that they are producing or they are having a space in order to produce their products and make sure that they are empowered.
Okay.
Kind of assistance, if I may put it like that.
Got you loud and clear. Let us move. My brother Max in Rudaport, good morning. Kuhle kuwe.
Hayi kuhle mhlakazi.
Phila ngona phakade.
Mhlakazi, next year I'm launching a new product. In PEP, I'm signing an agreement with one of my partners in Gen. So I'm a black man. I don't have money. It's a fact, and we need funding. I wonder how the gentleman in your studio can assist.
And what kind of product is this, Max?
It's an insurance product.
Okay.
And I just wonder how your guests could assist in terms of assisting us in terms of funding, because applying at your NEF, your CIFA, they take about 6 months before giving you a rejection, and a rejection that is not material, that they say, no, you did not submit a certified ID copy, or your ID copy when by the time it gets to the board has expired.
Okay.
So those are the, yes.
Max, I've got you loud and clear. Let me take one more. Silent, good morning.
Good morning, Lukon. You know what is painful about the oversight work is that when you are leading the discussion and you are criticizing a company or exposing it, it's either you are after the meeting or even during the meeting, you are going to receive a strange call that stay away from my company, or a message with long numbers that you can't even trace that says that I heard you were criticizing my company or exposing it, and stay away from it. Otherwise, you will bite the dust. And when you trace that, there's no way that you can find out about it.
Yeah.
The second comment that I want to make is that these companies that they are given a tender and they don't complete their job, why can't we actually blacklist the owners of the company, the board of directors? Because what they do, if they see that I started a project, it costs around 2 million, and then they see that I can't drive that Range Rover, they are liquidate, or they just collapse that company, start a new company, because they know that you are going to blacklist the company, not a human being, or the owners or the board of directors of the CEO. So let's go straight to the members or the board of those companies and the companies. Thank you very much.
Silent, got you loud and clear. I must probably interdict the use of Range Rover. I think they're going to brand damage up, and people who drive Range Rovers will now start driving behind them and think, oh, listen, that's why I was when I got Kabang project. Mpapa, let me start off with you. Shabira, there asking, how do we classify rural communities in a province such as this one, and of course, the assistance of the maize growers along the R21?
No, thank you very much. I think in Gauteng, we classified that there are 4 areas. One, if you talk about the urban areas, that's the one that are around the cities. That's the urban. And then again, we've got the townships that originally, Soweto, wherever, those are the townships. And then again, we have the rural in Gauteng, though the rural area is not really vast like other provinces. I mean, if you go to the former Motsweding, when you go to Bronkhorstspruit, you'll see that there are some of the rural areas there. You go to the areas around Winterfeld, around the area Maboloka, whatever. It now comes, it's the rural area. But now we also have the farm areas. I mean, those farms you can talk about around Kanyane, around Petit, Tleporki, and Budukuloveng in Pretoria. Those are the farm areas. So that's how we really classify them. But now, if you have people, especially the emerging farmers that we see around the R21, you need, first of all, to find out whether they are doing that legally or illegally.
Yeah.
But now, once it is legal, we really advise them to approach the department. You must understand, we are from the portfolio committee.
Yes.
It is the department that directly will be responding to them. I might leave my number at the end of the show so that I really direct them. My number is 24 hours. Then direct them to say, these are the specific people that you should talk to in the department.
You're one of few politicians who will actually say that their number is 24 hours. I commend you on that right now on this show. Max, they're seemingly talking about a new product. I suppose it falls under what you are saying to direct them. But what's your sense, though? I mean, when we talk about economic development, and I know we're talking about small, media, micro enterprises, which the National Development Plan tells us these should be the drivers of the economy, the drivers of growth, the drivers of employment. But it seems as if we don't necessarily always have a very clear way to ensure that we support them.
Yeah, I think the department are not necessarily ushering accolades, but they have really come up with a number of initiatives. The only thing is, are they operational or not? Like if you are still at the startup, because that's where you want really to start. The department, they've got what you call the ECASI Labs. The ECASI Labs is a startup. You go there with the idea. The department try to assist you and make sure that once it starts flourishing, then they market you locally and again market you even internationally. So those startups, I mean, those ECASI Labs, you'll find them in Randfontein, you'll find them in Soweto, in Mamelodi. We located them in the townships. Again, we've got the innovation hubs. You go to Pretoria, where it's more of going there with this idea, or you go there with this particular business. You say, I need assistance. They will take you from there, study your project, and try really to assist you. But now, in terms of the funding does the Gauteng Enterprise Propeller, where they give you 50% loan and 50% grant. They are doing that in partnership with the DTI. There are others. They're doing that in partnership. But those assistants are there. So in terms of the turnaround, as a portfolio committee, we've been talking about this, and we say they need to make sure that they accelerate the process.
Yeah.
But again, I'll refer them to the specific person in the Gauteng Enterprise Propeller.
Not a problem at all. Mpho, you were nodding quite in agreement with Silent about the painful part of oversight and intimidation and all of that. Do you think that as a portfolio committee, especially, carrying oversight on such a vast and contested department with mega resources for infrastructure build programs, you at times tend to believe that even yourselves, doing your work as parliamentarians, you can be threatened?
Earlier on, I had mentioned that I've got a lawsuit
for
doing work. And this lawsuit come as a result of us as a committee going to a school called Maibuye in around Tembisa, which was started as far back as 2017. To date, the school is not yet completed. The school is not utilized. We went there, we found certain things, and we express our feelings as the committee. And in our expression, we never mentioned any contractor's name or a company, because I didn't know who was contracted at the time. But I got a letter from a law firm claiming that I must retract my comments, issue a public apology, and pay an X amount of money. And I'm saying I'm waiting for them to take an action.
And then, so in that letter, did the company reveal itself?
Now I know which company is that. I have never mentioned any company. There are video footages. Anyone can access them. I never mentioned, but it's not an issue. Why I was agreeing with silence is that these are some of the the ways of intimidating an individual, not to continue doing. But unfortunately, with me, they're taking chances. They must try something else. That one is a minor issue.
And of course, he talks about blacklisting. I was talking to Advocate Andy Mutibi not long ago from the SIU, and we were exploring this idea, that how best do you blacklist? Because blacklisting the company itself seemingly is not enough, because a person just becomes a director at a new company or becomes part of a subsidiary company that still manages to benefit from doing business with the state. What are your thoughts in terms of this debate around blacklisting? And of course, also the blacklisting registry of Treasury is not always so well updated, because there's a bit of snail-paced approach that people are dilly-dallying whether these people should be blacklisted or not, and we can pontificate about what the possibilities are about that. But what would you say is probably the route to take in terms of blacklisting?
Well, I suppose silence has an inside intel in our discussion as a portfolio committee, because in the last meeting of the portfolio committee, we adopted a recommendation which we presented to the House sitting for the approval, and the House has approved that in our blacklisting of companies, we should not only blacklist Power FM as a company, but we must also blacklist the ID numbers of those that are at the forefront of running Power FM. And our belief is that if we do that, I will not be able to go and register another company that will come and do work with government, because the ID number remember, when you apply to be on the database, you also have to include your ID number. So the ID number must flag to say, no, this we can't do work with.
Because this person is involved.
And now, in the next quarter, our proposal is that we must take a resolution to the House. We want the House to adopt and approve that as a committee, we should also be able to name and shame these companies and their directors. So the community knows that these are the people that are doing these things, and that's supposed to benefit the community, but they're not benefiting the community. They're benefiting their own individual pockets.
People of power, as I usually say, if Marcella are listening, they are definitely shaking in their boots this morning, because things are happening and legislation seemingly that if that resolution is taken, then it must become policy and the department must implement it. It's 10 minutes to 11. Modise, thank you so much for holding. Good morning.
Baba.
Kuhle?
Ngona kunjani?
Siyaphila baba.
Lalela baba. Uyabona le ndaba le ya government ne infrastructure ne.
Yeah.
For as long as there is no consequence management. When I talk of consequence management, I mean in terms of there is a precedent in law in terms of Companies Act that if companies are found on the wrong side of the law, those directors in their personal capacity can be declared delinquent directors. Delinquent directors literally means that Lomond lawyer, the ID number will be captured on the system. He will not be able to open any other company as a director under CIPC, which implements the Companies Act in our country. Inkinga esinayo nina bafethu is that we dilly-dallying on issues zokuthi politics are trembling on governance.
Yeah.
In a sense that khona manje the portfolio committee is the same comrades zaka MEC, zaka HOD, zaka contractor. So who's going to call who to order here?
Yeah. I get you, Modise, talking about a web that is there. Pastor, I'll come back to you. I've got evidence, Mpho, on Twitter asking, I have one particular question for Bones. In their oversight role, what have they discovered as contributing factors to the collapse of PRASA infrastructure in the province, and what intervention can both the province and national do to remodel the infrastructure development approach? I suppose evidence is raising something that is interesting, because I know you are probably going to say, rail is PRASA, and then this, is a state-owned enterprise, blah, blah, as a board reports to the shareholder, which is national government. But then on the other hand, we often talk about South Africa being a unitary state and with spheres of government that are intergovernmental in nature. Are we doing enough, to your view, to exercise that intergovernmental framework to secure the infrastructure, so that we don't just only point to PRASA or the Minister of Transport to say, well, it's their problem. They have jurisdiction over that. But some of those, I mean, for example, people here in Gauteng, you'll know, have been extremely affected by the collapse of the Northern Mabopane line, for example.
That's just the unfortunate part about government and its cumbersome processes and many or too many administrative processes. Because I would tell you right here and now that it does not fall within the jurisdiction of what I'm supposed to do or what we're supposed to do as a portfolio committee. And I know member Craig Shiman yesterday, in his response, when the question was raised about infrastructure
and provincial roads and so on,
he would
and municipal
attempted
roads,
to respond to that. So I don't want to be in hot water tomorrow and say, but you went beyond the call of you went beyond the call of duty.
But at a policymaker's sort of level, maybe let's not, now constrain it to your portfolio, but talk about. We've already spoken about the bureaucratization in terms of the budgeting, funds, allocations, and so on. Do you think, though, something could be done, that there could be resources spared at a provincial level to also ensure that there's the securing of the infrastructure that is already there? I know, for example, people have spoken about, infrastructure development and then hand over its maintenance and management. In fact, your colleagues talking about maintenance were saying that they want maintenance to go back to line departments that are custodians of the infrastructure at the end of the day. So do you think we need to be thinking about those things?
Well, I know for a fact that Mpapa and Mrs. Nkosi in their committees, chair of chairs and deputy chair of chairs, they would have brought a proposal to the House that we need to do something about the infrastructure in the province, even though it does not fall within our and I know there's a work that they are doing in ensuring that I think the security personnel, there's a number of people that get to be hired, just to guard, because obviously it might be a forte of national, but it affects the residents of Gauteng. And we are expected to do something. I'm sure he can go.
And let me give you a chance as well to share on that work that is being done. Do you get a sense that, how do I put this in the most diplomatic way? There are things that were happening pre-1994 that when the new dispensation came, tried too hard to unburden itself of those remnants of apartheid, for example, such as having railway police, which were quite big, and now we have none. Even their cottages have collapsed, and then subsequently the rail infrastructure itself has collapsed.
No, thank you very much. Now you want me to wear another cap.
It's okay if you have too many caps.
Yeah. So, but the matter is really raising. It was really tabled in the House, and then the matter is with the legislature. That is us now as the office bearers of the legislature, and then we are really dealing with the matter. Once we've completed that report, it will go back to the House sitting, and then it will be tabled. It is precisely what the chairpersons were raising, that really there is a problem in terms of these processes between the infrastructure and these other line departments.
Yeah.
So we are really dealing with the matter.
Okay.
And then we'll deal with it at that level.
Paswa?
Quincy Jones once sent a song, but what good is a song if it doesn't have no message? What good is a policy if it doesn't serve its citizens? ANC is a poison chalice that whatever, even if you have this many portfolio committees, comrades are at odds in terms of eating and chowing. When you look at the demarcation or political demarcation, they don't have economic demarcation. You'll find that the old apartheid system, they are still perpetuating, and they say they will propose this and that for the past 28 years. Bear in mind those kids that were born in 1994, they are now policymakers. They find the system being broken. How can you go and police the people that are in the same trajectory of not saving the people?
Yeah.
That's my question.
Okay, Pastor, I got you. It's a question that I probably would save or bring Modise back when we talk about PEC politics, which are very hot and happening and interesting. But you seem to want to maybe have a view on that one. But I also want to ask you a question that keeps emerging, that also emerges in the township economic bill, is the issue of zoning. where, you've spoken about townships. So people say in Soweto, I want to start a business, but the zoning really restricts me. And the city of Johannesburg takes forever to rezone or even consider applications for rezoning. And in some instances, in the city of Tshwane, for example, people have tried to rezone agricultural land into where they can now build, whether it's hospitals or something like that, to bring economy but services to people. But there's just no movement. Things are locked in the pipeline for 2 to 3 years in terms of rezoning applications. How significant a barrier is that to economic development?
Thank you very much. I know if I talk about the township economic bill, it will take me another hour.
Yeah.
But I will just have to be short, because the reason why we are coming up with this bill is also to address the latter question, where we wanted really to make sure that we free ourselves and make sure that we implement the policies that we have. Because if you talk about the rezoning, it becomes very problematic in terms of the bylaws. Because as a province, to give you an example, you have the youth maybe unemployed. They are busy with the car wash. They are busy on the pavement. And there is a piece of land that they cannot even utilize. So now with this township economic bill, we wanted really to make sure that we are in consultation with the municipalities. The province has the power to demarcate that area and make sure that they perform business. And then you have in terms of the township economy, our people who are doing the backyard rentals. And then also want to make sure that we normalize that, because where they're doing it illegally, but because of the law, we cannot just do it. We are governed by the law. Now, if we pass this bill, the township economic bill, is some of the things that we wanted it to clear.
Yeah.
Like your big markets that gets into the township.
Yeah.
We want to regulate that.
Absolutely.
So it's just to address the issue of zoning. Yes, the township economy will make sure that we are able, without really having these bottlenecks, go through the municipalities, do whatever, to demarcate the area, we zone them accordingly.
Absolutely. Paul, let me give you a parting shot here on property management. We have seen a lot of concerns raised about, the compliance of buildings with health and safety regulations and so on. And I know MEC Mutala was once talking to Faith Mangope at some point a few months back. How much of an oversight role are you playing as a portfolio committee? Because, you remember that the Department of Health had to vacate a building in the CBD at some point a few years back. How much of a role are you playing to make sure that there's regulation and good compliance?
Well, currently what we're doing, because you see, when you go to national, infrastructure development is called public works. And any other province, they still refer to it as public works. And here we call it infrastructure development and property management. So what we are doing is to try and clean our database so that we know for a fact which buildings belong to Gauteng. So that when we go out and do oversight, we don't get caught up in a surprise or not, but this has nothing to do with you. You are overstepping and so on and so forth. Because these people, this thing of bureaucracy, there are people who embrace that thing. They hide behind that thing. They love it and they enjoy it. And it goes back to what is it Modise who was speaking about the so-called consequence
and connection.
This buzzword called consequence management. For me, it's just that buzzword. I've got a friend who trained as a doctor in Cuba. Dr. Mpho, he says to me when he was in Cuba and when he came back, what he realized as a difference is that most of our doctors here who are trained here at home, they're trained to treat. And in Cuba, they're trained to cure. And for me, consequence management does that. It treats and it does not cure.
Absolutely.
What we need to do, a department says they've got 10 targets. When they report they've achieved 4 of 10. 6 is outstanding. The law, the legislation says we still have to give them time to go back and tell us what is it that they're going to do to remedy the situation.
And that is a problem. It extends the line too long. Let me thank you, my guests. We're out of time, but it was a beautiful conversation. Thank you so much. And Mpapa Kanyane at Economic Development, Agriculture, Environment and Rural Development.
Thank you very much.
Mpho Modise, Infrastructure Development and Property Management. Thank you.
May I wish Mr. Tavisotema, your colleague, a happy birthday. And those that are driving, please be cautious and exercise patience.
Many more well wishes for TT, the man himself. 11 o'clock.
News.
In our top